And according to ChinaNews.net, Mike Pompeo is on the road again. And the reason for it, he's making a whirlwind tour through Central Europe in order to talk to people in Hungary, Poland, Slovakia. And his topic is Russia and China. How can that be? So once again, as the One Belt, One Road initiative from China is clearly on Mike Pompeo's mind, it appears that he's going to share his concerns about the future of Europe if the Red Dragon is allowed to attack with people with open ears like Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary. Meanwhile, according to the Epoch Times, great strides are being taken in Afghanistan as a top Pentagon official has visited Afghanistan amid that push for peace. So while President Trump is removing the troops from Syria, and those troops are still in the process of weeding out the remnants of ISIS, and there's one final major battle going on right now, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But at the same time, then, they are preparing in what I believe is going to be the next strategy for the Middle East, which is to pull our troops out of Afghanistan by enabling the parties to come to the table and work out a deal in order for peace to reign within that area of the Middle East as well, and we can end that 18-year-old war that is costing us $50 billion a year. And gee whiz, that would build, what, 10 walls over this way? So as President Trump continues to tweet out about what his vision is for the drawdown in Afghanistan and the end of that war and the turning it back over to the players in that area in order for them to resolve their own differences, it looks like it's all headed in the right direction. So I mentioned in the previous piece about what's happening in Afghanistan and with the drawdown of the troops there. And this comes to us from One American News Network. Again, you won't hear this in the Marxist screaming media, but the coalition warplanes are now hitting the last Islamic State enclave in eastern Syria as American forces prepare to exit that theater of battle. So as the Syrians loyal to Bashar al-Assad have taken the field and are now honing in on the last stand of ISIS in Syria, that being in Baghouz, Syria, the Syrian Defense Forces, the SDF, have driven the Islamic State from areas in northern and eastern Syria into this one pocket. They've allowed the civilians to escape, and now they are preparing to wipe out the final 400 to 600 jihadis that may be held up there, and again pave the way for stability to reign in that area of the world. And thanks to Donald Trump, who realized that ISIS was more than the JV team and took the strong action he has in the last 2 years to end up with victory in our grasp taking place right now in that area of the world. As for the border wall situation, another posting from Q-Team indicates that all along the planners in the Trump administration believed that there was no solution through the House of Representatives with the Democrats, and were planning all along as a final measure, but the most probable result to have to rely upon Department of Defense funding and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in order to get the final sections of that critical border wall built. And it appears that that's exactly where this is headed, as there's now another breakdown in negotiations regarding the border wall funding, as the Democrats continue to be completely adverse to doing what is absolutely necessary in order to protect this country. So as True Pundit shows us, as the Democrats continue to stonewall on the wall, Texas police are using their own vehicles to form a wall, a temporary wall, until the real wall is built in order to help Border Patrol agents stop the mass invasion force headed from the south. So in the area of Eagle Pass, that has been a soft target for the drug dealers, the terrorists, and the other illegals streaming from the south into our country, the police have lined up their vehicles, creating a harder target for those illegals in order to cross. And as the caravan migrants, quote unquote, the illegal invasion force from the south, continues to head closer, we have now the Texas Border Patrol and police taking action in order to harden that soft target. And lo and behold, according to the Washington Examiner, Mexico for the first time is impressing some of our border control people, doing something that hasn't been done before. Again, in the Eagle Pass area, Mexico has opened up a facility in the border town of Piedras Negras, that's Black Rocks. They're housing and feeding the migrants, keeping them on the Mexican side of the border, spending, and here it comes, $16,000 a day in order to feed the roughly 1,500 to 1,800 members of that wing of the invasion force, keeping them comfortable on that side of the border, relieving the pressure on the wall area. And here's a good quote for you. Border residents of both sides of each country suffer from this immigration. We are not against immigration. We are against illegal immigration. We all know that it's costing us, our taxpayers, a lot because there's a lot of people that have come into the city. It's expensive. So if you would think that's coming from an American official or representative of the Trump administration, you're wrong. That's from Alonso de Hoyos, the president of Mexico's National Chamber of Commerce. So it appears that people on both sides of the border are starting to understand that this lose-lose situation that was implemented under the previous administration is now turning into a win-win situation for both of the countries if we secure that border. And according to the conservative treehouse, the left has given up on trying to abolish ICE, so they're using a new tactic. What they're going to try to do now is to squeeze them financially and to remove funds that would normally go to immigration and customs enforcement through the budget. Diverting that money to other programs then would force ICE to dramatically cut back on its activities. But again, the House is not the only force in play here. They can recommend budget items, but it still has to go through the Senate. And so keep your powder dry. Don't go off believing that this will actually go through the way that the Democrats are trying to make it happen. They can try to choke off immigration and customs enforcement and force the release of 30,000 illegal alien criminals into our population. But the Senate has a say too in funding measures. This budget may be starting in the House, but it actually has to go through the Senate as well. So everybody just stay calm and let's see how this goes. And once again, proving that the Democrats just don't know how to play poker with the false poker face by Nancy Pelosi during the State of the Union address. We've got here radical leftists that are broadcasting exactly what their plan is in order to bring the United States down, defeating America by using the left in order to elect radical Democrats like Ilhan Omar and to unleash them on our society. And as Pamela Geller goes on to report in the Geller Report, that these words that are being used by people on the Democrat side of the aisle, the leftists and radicals that are slamming Israel and the Jews on a daily basis, words can result in action, such as an Ohio synagogue being riddled with dozens of bullets. I guarantee you haven't heard this story in the Marxist screening media today, have you? And another wrinkle for that Green New Deal, this comes to us from the New American. Someone says that it's a recipe for mass suicide, and you won't believe who that is. So as Alex Newman reports from Calgary, Canada, he had an exclusive interview with Greenpeace co-founder Dr. Patrick Moore, and Patrick Moore is warning that the Green New Deal proposed by Democrats is a recipe for mass suicide. And of course, Dr. Moore has come to his senses in recent years and left Greenpeace for a variety of reasons. But he says that millions of Americans would die if the policies outlined in the Green New Deal were implemented. So take it from a reputable scientist to know the implications of the most unscientific side slapper yet to come from the left. And you're probably up on the brouhaha over Miss Ocasio-Cortez and her claim of the fact that when she came out with her new Green Deal, her Green New Deal program, that it was squashed so firmly by both sides of the aisle and was even ridiculed in the press that she immediately and her minions went into a face-saving mode and came up with all kinds of interesting narratives as far as what had gone wrong with her crazy plan. One of them was that the Republicans had hacked into their website and changed the way that things were worded. Another allegation was that they were in such a rush to get their brilliant plan up that they actually had made some errors in the FAQ page, the frequently asked questions. The only frequently asked questions is, from what planet does Ocasio-Cortez come from? And even Washington Post fact checkers have determined that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's claim of the doctored Green New Deal FAQ documents were doctored outside of her control, said that that was misleading. But of course they wouldn't slap her with the Pinocchio type ratings that they would if it had been a conservative that had made those same claims that turned out to be totally bogus. And no, this is not Antifa. This is a shot from Denver's Teachers Union rally line, the protest line. This comes to us from the Free Beacon. So, major cities throughout the United States are being struck by another epidemic, and that is teachers going on strike. So those poor underpaid teachers that are once again now rallying and showing their true stripes are now going to, I guess, give our kids a break, and for a few days our kids won't have to listen to the leftist Marxist teachings that come to them from these folks, and instead they're out in the blizzards and in the cold marching on the protest line because they need to be paid more, because if they're not paid more, gee whiz, what's going to happen with the teaching of our kids? According to the Western Journal, there has been a major breakthrough in the case of collusion with Russia. And no, it doesn't involve the Trump administration. That major breakthrough? Well, there's a new report that indicates that Bill and Hillary Clinton colluded with Russia during the early years of the Obama administration, developing projects later identified as security concerns, but also enriching the Clinton Foundation. Who'da thunk it? And again, it takes the intrepid investigator John Sullivan in order to ferret out the information, and this goes back to the beginning in 2009 and continued through 2016. Allies of the Clintons with ties to Russia and ties to that heaping pile of undocumented false documents known as the quote-unquote dossier that turned out to be completely false against President Trump. All of this begs for a second special counsel to be appointed as soon as the Mueller American Inquisition winds down, and for William Barr, when he takes his post as the next Attorney General of the United States, to then unleash the true investigation into the true criminals and get to the bottom of what's been going on with this illegal Clinton Foundation, the largest fraud in American history for a charitable institution. So how does this all come about? Well, you've got all of these narratives that we've been talking about what's going on with the new Green Deal, or the Green New Deal, or the New Deal in Green, whatever that thing is. We've been talking about what's going on with the true collusion, the Russia collusion, and that was between the Clintons and Russia. And the explanation for it comes to us from the WorldNet Daily and David Kapelian describing about how the Democrats use the dark art of projection in order to accuse their opponents of the very evil they commit. This is the explanation for a lot of what we've been discussing in today's broadcast. So once again, it was actually Hillary Clinton was the one that's been colluding with the Russians. It's actually the Democrat Party that's completely obsessed with race and not the Republican Party. And the most fascist group in the United States are those leftists and Democrats, not the Republicans and the people on the right, if you were to listen to the Marxist screaming media. And on the economic front, this coming to us from Zero Hedge, Matteo Salvini, Italy's quote-unquote populist leader, is shaking Europe's financial establishment to the core by proposing that he could seize control of Italy's gold reserves from the central bank. So Italy's Salvini seems to understand the importance of keeping the wealth within the country and not allowing the central bank to suck it all off and use it for their nefarious projects around the globe. But of course his statements are controversial according to the mainstream media, the Marxist screaming media. But again, Italy struggles with the same situation we hear in the United States. They do have leftist political parties who will try to fight this off and protect their central banking puppet masters at all costs. So at least Salvini's headed in the right direction, and pray that he's successful in fighting off the deep state in Italy. So that's our quick rundown through the major news topics of the day. Thank you for watching, and God bless. Hello, this is DC Hammer, and this is the DC Hammer Show. So today we're going to take a leap around the different news topics of the day, and starting out is a piece by Breitbart indicating that Donald Trump, President Trump's approval rating, has skyrocketed from 43% 10 days ago to 52%. Now, this is, of course, due to the typical mainstream polling organization. You know, those ones that I always hang up on anytime that they call because, number one, I don't have the time to talk to them. And number two is I don't trust what they would do with my data anyway. They'd probably ignore it and substitute another 10% on the left side against anything that would be said from the right. So if these people, these pollsters are saying there's 52% approval for Donald Trump at this point in time after that brilliant State of the Union speech, I would say it's probably more in the mid-60s. And yes, this is a Rasmussen report, and they're always right about everything. After all, in November of 2016, Rasmussen projected Hillary Clinton to be the winner of the presidential election. And although the margin they were reporting is narrower than most of the other organizations, they were on the wrong side of that. And now the DC Hammer Show is available as an audio podcast. Just go to Podcast Garden or iTunes and search for DC Hammer or News Network Analysis Associates, NNAA.